This is In the Tank with Fish. I'm here this morning with a very good friend of a long time. Heritage. We even go back to the same country. I have John Nicolletti with me. Good morning, John.
Hello, Fish. How are you?
I'm doing good.
I really didn't know what to expect coming into the tank. I didn't know if I needed floaties or bringing some fish food. I'm a culinary guy. Really not sure which way to go with this experience.
I was thinking the food's always a good idea, John.
I'll keep that in mind.
I need to let you know. I'm an Italian fish, so there's a certain variety of food, right?
I love that.
So I was just actually, before we came on, I was just telling somebody, I knew you before I met you because my son took one of your culinary classes out at the college.
Oh, that's great.
And I was just asking you, how long were you out there?
Yeah, well, just shy of 30 years as an adjunct. And kind of funny to be in distance ed in the 80s or, in the 90s. We had full studios and it was clunky, and right down to the finish, we're in a Zoom world. So you're doing cooking classes live on a laptop, and it's all miniaturized, so it's kind of cool. It's different, and we're just always adjusting, but really enjoyed working with young folks and getting them food smart.
So are you from this area, John?
So I think I have great grandchildren now, so our fifth generation has been born, so I can call myself local now. Yeah. But we got here in 1968. We came in from Japan to Beale Air Force Base, and Pops and Mom retired and bought a Basque restaurant. We opened it Basque one day a week, but Italian the rest. And that just kind of grew into several different hospitality environments. We've done everything from small, independent little private things up to feeding the governor a couple of times, or concerts and festivals and those kinds of deals. Yeah.
So the next time I met you, trying to remember, you were a supervisor for District 1. Two. It was the one that has Marysville.
Correct.
2. Yeah. And so I met you with that, and I remember, I think I had you on the air because we were doing things at that time. And I got a chance to know you. And one of the things I noticed is you are a major community guy. Yeah. Bottom line, I don't care what you're doing. And then I remember you ran again. And I remember saying to you, John, this could end up being good, right? Because you didn't win. But later when we talked, as a supervisor, there are things that actually keep you from doing some community things you'd like to do.
Sure.
And so since that time, and I'm trying to remember how long ago that was, you have been involved in you're never going to slow down, John.
Yeah, that's it. You have to go back to really know that we've always been fully engaged. For me, the fire starter on going into public service like that was when the Sacramento Business Journal came into town and wanted to visit about this small business that they had been hearing about, that it was really, really big in community affairs. And my father had recently passed away, but we had decades of community service and service to the airmen at Beale Air Force Base, and something that we have just continued. There's 6 of us children, but I'm the one that really likes to speak jive with the local stuff, and Pops and I really took off on that one, and it was just a continuum. And then the Journal was asking Fish if they could get a dollar figure. They said, we know you do these fundraisers and floods, and you do these, you give out meals, and you're always somewhere giving something. And have you tracked that? And I said, well, we track it because we use it with taxes and we
Yeah.
try to manage our affairs. And I said, well, what is that figure? And I said, well, I don't know. We don't really look at it that way. We really just look at it as we belong to this community and we want the community to feel our love. Great. Can you get us a figure? And I said, okay. So I did look it up.
Of course.
And I was surprised at that point in time. We had been in business for about 21 years. And in that time, we gave away over $1 million in cash.
Wow.
And it really took me by surprise. We never had more than 19 employees. We've always been a small business. And I was just really, it was an unexpected experience. And so we're very pro-business. We're very pro-children. Community needs are always high up there. And at that particular time, the County of Yuba decided to take the Montgomery Ward building or property, it had been closed for some years, and convert it to a government center. And so it caused me to go to a supervisor meeting and hear this out and understand why they were taking a for-profit tax-generating business off the streets.
Yeah.
Yeah. And when I was there, every city council member was there. Every department head from the city was there. Everybody in the city of Marysville was saying that is $250,000 a year to our budget. Please don't take that from us. It's the busiest traffic lane in the city of Marysville, coming off the 10th Street Bridge. Mm-hmm. And the person who was in the seat that I was soon to be running after said, the government will save the city of Marysville. This will cause such a boon to the economy. And then somebody in the city of Marysville got up and says, but the County of Yuba is already in the city of Marysville. You have government centers. So you're only moving from one space to the next space.
Yeah.
Whatever impact you were going to bring, you've already brought. And so, no, please don't take this building. And then one of the members running the admin department for the county got up and said, yeah, every department head in the city or in the County of Yuba wants this project and wants this office building. And I thought, really? Because I'm in Kiwanis with a number of those guys, and I'm looking around. I see a few of them, and I go up and I say, hey, bud, is that true? You really want to see this? And he said, John, if you ask a certain question a certain way, you can get a certain answer. And I thought, I got you. So, and that night, only Mary Jane Griego said, gosh, there's so many people here. Maybe we need to study this more. Should we look at this a little bit more and have a broader conversation? And the other four decided to vote for it and push it forward with the idea. And I was the person who was in that spot was saying, what you don't understand is that I'm a man of vision and I see things into the future that will become, and you don't have those skills, so you can't understand it. And I thought, okay. I said, so I'm going to take what I feel from living here and what I know from my neighbors, and I'm going to hang it on you like a Mr. T necklace kit, and I'm going to run against you, and I'm going to stop these kinds of things from happening. We all get motivated.
Yeah, something has to stir us before we'll actually stand up and go, all right.
Yeah. And so when I thought about it, I thought, we've contributed to the community, both in effort and in cash. Something to be proud of. And I thought, to volunteer as a county supervisor, and you get paid, but I put many more hours in. I kept office hours. I didn't farm out any of my committees. I sat on 28 different commissions or committees. I really committed to it. Sold the businesses so I wouldn't have a distraction. And I felt like it would put a diamond on that ring, something the family would be proud about. And as it turned out, we had a big situation with the levees, and they weren't armored. We weren't protected. We had already in Yuba County let out development agreements in the Plumas Lake area, and those developers had the position of, this is no longer farmland. This is now neighborhoods. The value of the land is far greater. And if you want us to leave, you have to buy it for its retail price. And we didn't have that kind of money in Yuba County. So the only way forward was to work with these levees and to make them sound. And I'm very grateful and proud that in that time that I spent on the board, that we armored up 200-year levees, in Marysville 300-year. They are the strongest levees in the United States current, because they're the newest. But with the work we laid in at the Yuba Water Agency as your director there, and getting ready to pay off the bonds that paid for the dam originally, and now that resource stays in Yuba County, we immediately put into motion the new lower spillway, so that if we see a major tropical storm coming over the top of our snowpack, and we know we're going to have a flood effect, we can start releasing major portions of the lake, so it is prepared to absorb that impact. I mean, what is interesting about the Yuba River is from Cisco Grove, where you turn off of Highway 49 and onto Highway 80 heading up to Tahoe, it's basically the start of the Yuba River, but right there to the mouth of the river at Marysville is the farthest drop in the shortest distance of any river in the world. So when you have that gushing effect, it's so much so fast. Yeah, it's a near unnatural.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's a near unnatural force. And it has had dramatic impacts. And through the gold rush, it had many dramatic impacts. So like the gold fields is 10,000 acres, but it's like a lake that's full of rocks. So it's the only land mass in the United States that has a water right. They treat it as if it's water rights. So it absorbs great amounts of the Yuba River during high water events. And then as the event goes by, it keeps draining it back out into the river. So our water impacts stay longer than normal. But with that lower spillway and being able to manage that sooner, our levees in Marysville, once that spillway is complete, will be 500-year levees. And that's extraordinary. There is nothing like that. Nobody builds to that standard. I'm very, very proud of that accomplishment for the future, for the community it serves. And so those kinds of projects really were capstone, and they really made a big difference. Yeah.
So you can feel good about that, but you knew you weren't done. I mean, John, I look at it this way. Giving is a lifestyle. It's not I'm in a one-time donation to this. And we all end up in situations, because we all get asked. I mean, 93Q Radio is a nonprofit. I think I've asked you for money.
Yes.
And if I haven't, I will this next fund drive.
And I'll give again, because you have.
And so I understand that, right? And so we have so many phenomenal nonprofit service organizations. I remember seeing you at some event, and you had a jacket on, and it had I think you belong to every service club that we have here. I don't think you missed any. And if you did, and you're listening, John is willing to join one more service club. And so don't you feel like your parents, specifically you talk about your dad, that kind of got put in you as a lifestyle? Giving to the community is a lifestyle.
Yeah. Selfishly, it's always been my experience when somebody's having one of their worst days, and you're the guy that shows up, and you're bringing something that brings relief and brings comfort, you get so much more out of that. Yeah. You feel so much better. And because we've responded to floods, we responded to the Gulf War. If you remember, when Saddam Hussein was first on the roll, there was the Royal Guard. We had no idea how well trained they were, and the estimates were that 10,000 soldiers would lose their lives.
Third largest army.
Yeah. And so we were concerned as a country. Well, out here at Beale, and I'm just going to tell you this story because nobody's around to kind of do anything with it. But a certain general called Pops and said, could you boys help us out? The answer is always yes. What do you need? And he says, well, the pilots in the U-2s are really freaked out. They really feel that a modern missile system will take them out. And the likelihood of a U-2 actually killing somebody when it crashes is actually not that high. They're gliders. And so the odds are they're going to live. And they wanted a carbine. They wanted a pistol with them in the cockpit to give them some chance to escape. Could you help us? And could you get some pistols? So we said, absolutely. So we got 36 9mm, got them all set up. The entire war was over in 6 minutes.
Yeah.
It was boom. Turns out Schwarzkopf had, he just rolled right on it, and so then the Pentagon got word that some general got a hold of some screwballs and they put loaded firearms in a U-2 cockpit. We're going to investigate that. So we get another phone call. Hey, could you guys get rid of those guns real quick? And we said, sure. So NRA dinner, the Friends of the Deer, Ducks Unlimited. Who wants a 9mm that flew in the Gulf War? And here's a flag that was in the cockpit. This gun was in that situation.
That's very cool.
So we raised $60,000 for families for Beale Air Force Base. That was an awesome one.
Yeah.
But so we've been doing that stuff forever. And I was doing it as a supervisor, but people think, oh, he's an elected guy. And
there is a huge difference, and that's why I felt when you didn't get elected the second time, it's almost like I felt like, John, your hands are going to be untied, right? Mm-hmm. Because you're right. People look at, I know they're called public servants, but there's such a negative about government now that
It's odd to me, Fish. I mean, doctors have this many affairs. Lawyers have underhanded business practices at times. But everybody treats an elected official like they're on probation, like they're guilty. We just got to find it. Where's that Maserati?
We know it's there.
I know you got a Maserati somewhere. Somebody's paying you. And it was just always so amusing to me. But, the day after the election, so Wednesday comes and the numbers are in and you can see clearly there's no recovery. It's a hard day. On Thursday, we meet for a service club, for our Marysville Kiwanis Club. And I find myself driving towards the Kiwanis Club lunch, and I've sold everything. It's been, 12 years. I'm disconnected. I'm 100% divested into this public servicing, so I've got nothing. And I'm heading towards my Kiwanis meeting thinking, I think about the last thing I want to do is be a massive loser when your town says we don't want you.
Yeah, exactly.
And then go into a room, And I thought, if I don't belong there, if I don't belong in my own town, tell me now. And so I went there. And Pat McGrath really paid a big compliment. He goes, taking these kinds of losses are heartbreaking. They're difficult. Yeah. But here this guy sits. And he goes, we are a family, and don't ever forget it. And I thought, I never heard words like that come from a district attorney. They're usually on edge with elected officials because, my neighbor's nephew got a DUI, and hey, John, could you lean on that guy? Because you're a county supervisor. And they want to make a big example of those that try to call in favors because they want to clear. They do not. They follow the law. They don't do these good old boy things. Yeah. And so it surprised me when Pat, made that comment, but it also reaffirmed that I've never really been married to titles. I don't really think that we have to, show this shield and it's like going to Oz, right? Here's a paper. Now you got a brain. It's that quick. I think that if we do belong to this community, then live it and be it, and then getting associated with Habitat for Humanity, and then having that deep rootstock combines for just an access point to so many different ways to be a part of it, and I'm just taking full advantage of it.
I told Bruce Buttacavoli,
he's a good boy.
I said, Bruce, I can't run for office because you get two Italians in the office together, they start looking for bodies, right? Yeah. It's like I hate to say it, but there is, if your last name ends in a vowel,
that's the circle.
Politics.
That's the circle. Yeah,
it's like, oh, people don't think that way anymore.
We need a little more of a generational die-off has to happen because you absolutely think that way.
So you've done a lot. We'd never be able to cover it all, but you haven't changed over the time that I've known you and the different things you're involved. We were just talking before this. You sit on the school board.
Yes.
You have Habitat. You're involved in service organizations. What else is left, John?
So I'm really excited about the direction CASA's going on. I'm the president currently for Casa de Esperanza, and we've come through quite a bit of transition, but the future is going to be so great for this community. It really, really is. I think Michelle Downing's doing just first-class work. But that board position is incredibly taxing. You're dealing with people that are having in ways of experiences that we just would never imagine happening to us or anybody in our family or anybody close by. It's real big work. And Habitat's really no different. We've got a disaster response side of Habitat and a disaster recovery. That's two different things. So in a earthquake or a major fire or a flood, which right now currently we're involved with earthquakes out of Humboldt and flooding out of the Monterey County area in Pajaro, which is a big farm worker village. So a lot of undocumented workers, and they don't get access to a lot of federal funding. So trying to find ways to get people back into housing today. But with the major fires that California experienced, our Habitat got into a contract with CAL FIRE. We had some pretty significant fires during the pandemic.
Yeah.
And I said, our restaurants are dying. Can we please use these restaurants before they go completely under?
Yeah.
And CAL FIRE said, well, we don't want to have 100 vendors. We'll have one. If you want to be that guy, you go do that. We'll do it through you.
You could connect with the different.
So I did
John,
that.
Not to interrupt you, but I absolutely believe the people that suffered the most during that pandemic was restaurants, because it wasn't just the restaurant owner, right? It was the busboys, the waitresses, everybody involved in that. And of the businesses, I don't have the statistics on it, but it would appear to me that the small businesses that we lost during that, I believe a very high percentage were restaurants.
They were, and the restaurants have altered probably permanently as a result.
Yeah,
it's hard to get help back in. There's just a myriad of issues. I know as a restaurant man and been so for all of my years. I've always known that a restaurant is a night job that you start at 7 a.m. Yeah. It's never short on making you work. And so balancing family and life goals and what a restaurant is requires a big passion and requires a big work ethic. And you know, when you have all that and the world beats you into the ground like the pandemic did, that's a heck of a time. I know I could just see 3 or 4 Zoom meetings that we were on trying to bring resource to restaurateurs, and in the middle of the meeting, they're just bawling. They're just broken down, and it's oh my gosh.
Yeah, we tried to bring as many as we could on the air and interview them and find out what creative ways they were staying in business. Some of them had more than one business, had to close one, right, just to keep one restaurant open. And when you get that close to it, you begin to see the effects. And honestly, I feel like the Yuba Sutter area really took a stand in trying to help one another stay open, stay in business, right? And so people were, I know one restaurant was like selling groceries out of the restaurant, and people drive up and, and they'd say, hey, we have this available. So they were doing everything they could to stay open. And it was a time, during the potential flood from Orville Dam, the fire season, COVID. I don't know about you, but I felt like it has made our community stronger, more desirous to help one another, not so quick to just walk by somebody.
Right.
And so there's like I said, I think giving is a lifestyle. And once you kind of get on that lifestyle, it doesn't matter, time, talents, and treasures. You're going to give. And I've watched that in you. I've had a chance to see that over the years that I've known you. And so it doesn't surprise me, but I could see where I didn't think about it till you said it, but having been a restaurateur, you're like, okay, I can see where these guys really needed the help, more so than, it's very obvious to you because you know what that life is like.
Well, so CAL FIRE has mechanisms for serving when they bring out 1,000 firefighters, and they don't have it when they bring out 100 firefighters or 300 firefighters. They don't want to bring in the big semis and all these really expensive things. So that's in this region. I've been called through Habitat for Humanity disaster response. I've been called 8 times in the past 4 years. Well, one was for a funeral, but the others were all in disaster response. And so when that happens, you don't know if it's going to be 4 days, 3 days. You're called somewhere around 2:00 that you might be called into service for the next morning. So we're going to be prepared for 250. And I said, so you want me to go by? Well, we're not sure. We have to have a meeting, and so by 5:00, you're having that meeting by 7:00. Can you give me a clue? Because stores are closing.
Yeah.
And so I've got restaurants on call, and I'm doing this big dial out. And, if we get the go sign, then we need to have, the breakfast burritos by 6:30 a.m. So the Dancing Tomato says, well, I don't have that many tortilla shells. I mean, I don't make 300 tortillas breakfast
not
burritos normally. So I'm going to grocery shopping for them, and I'm trying to get stuff. And sometimes I split it to 2 different restaurants, and we have to meet and bring it together. The Stachinskis have been really good with coffee. Tim was a ambulance driver. He's been a first responder. He's a big heart for it. So he loves rolling
qualified, FEMA.
Yeah, so he loves rolling out.
He knows that stuff.
Yep, it's good. And so I think during one of the fires, I was really pleased. It was about a 3-day sequence of breakfast, dinner, shot it all around town. It was peak of pandemic, but that activity put over $40,000 into the pockets of local restaurateurs, and they were part of helping out a fire that was happening in our town, in our community, the foothills. So that was good. And so we've really committed to disaster response, and then disaster recovery is that long-term getting life back together.
Yeah, a lot of people think once you've handled it. My little brother, unfortunately, just burned his house down back in Florida. He was on oxygen, and the oxygen tank caught. It was an accident. There was something wrong with the valve on the oxygen tank. But, he lost everything. So he said, well, Red Cross comes in, and he's a veteran, so some of the veteran organizations helped him. And he said, but, you lose everything. So it's not just that immediate, it's that long-term. How do you continue to help till they can truly get back on their feet? And so a lot of recovery takes time. It's not that immediate response. This is going to take time.
Yeah. I try to use the analogy that it took a long time to get your junk drawer to be fully stuffed. And when you lose all that and you don't have your junk drawer, you realize it when you're rebuilding, in the process of rebuilding, I've got to go buy this stuff now.
Yeah.
Oh, I gotta get that now. It's expensive and it takes a long time to rebuild.
Yeah.
So in the middle of a disaster, if a disaster strikes, in the beginning, 90% of the response are government agencies or federal-backed agencies like Salvation Army, Red Cross. But quickly after that, when it comes to long-term recovery, 90% of the support comes from faith communities. It's all faith-based.
Yeah.
It's fascinating to see how much resilience the different religions have, and they're at the ready to come in and help out in the community, and it makes me really reflect on being a really proud part of America. It's something we do.
Yeah.
But California, being what it is so resourceful. During the Paradise Fire, 54,000 people were made homeless all in the same day. And the majority of California didn't feel it. They had brought semi-truck after semi-truck of supplies to us at the Yuba Center Fairgrounds. The county called and said, can you guys just handle donations? I said, sure. And so I took our 2 little covered trailers over there, full in 30 minutes. Oh my gosh. Dave, I need the livestock barns. And they were leaky. So he was putting new roofs on in the middle of a rainstorm while we were setting up this massive general store. And we also wanted the donations to be away from where the victims were, the survivors were, because it was like staring at animals. It's like, don't do that. And we did some really good things in Yuba Center. We, Center North licensed the main exhibit hall, so it became a Center North facility. So they had an actual doctor in there. They had nursing teams in there. They could prescribe medicines and get people on track quickly. Dave Dillaboo did some really fast footwork in trying to make the facility, best suited for people that were staying there. And I've met a number of people that have been through disaster in communities that were trying to bring in trailers that are washing machine and dryer units, and trailers that were for pet, mobile pet hospitals, and just crazy what was going on. Oroville had a very established setup at Fort Time. Oroville was threatened on that fire. And then Orland at the fairgrounds in Glenn County had a setup. Maybe the fairgrounds is in Willows. What I started doing was networking with those guys. I've got diapers, I've got 1s, 2s, and 4s. Who needs those? And they had some 5s.
Oh,
so we were swapping. People want to donate shampoo, but they don't donate hair ties and, different varieties of brushes. So we were trying to fill in the gaps on that. And we're really big on tracking that inventory and verifying it's going out to people that were associated with the fire. Donor intent becomes very, very serious.
Yeah.
Some people think it's a free dump pass. They want to bring you mountain loads of clothes and stilettos and gowns, and you're thinking, folks, right? They got nothing.
They just lost everything.
Please.
They're not wearing a ball gown.
Please don't do that, and so you learn a lot during that process. Yeah.
I want to kind of fast forward just a little bit.
Absolutely.
Because I want to talk about the restore.
Good.
And so I've been over there and I've looked around and there you have to really walk around. There's a lot of stuff in there, right?
Yeah.
And so just two things. One is where does the stuff come from that ends up in the restore? And you guys set pricing of that stuff way below what you would go out and buy it. So where does the stuff come from? And then what is the money when people buy things at the restore? Where does that go, John?
Really, really appreciate your asking that question. So each habitat survives on their own merit. I mean, they either sink or swim. And so restores were contemplated through Habitat as both a vehicle to get home improvement supplies. We're in the home improvement business, and a way to tap into giving sources and be able to, we don't necessarily need everything that's given to us.
Yeah.
And so having a way to sell some of that and get some of it even donated. If it's another nonprofit, we do a lot of cross donation. So the restore is a lot of things, but the simple basic line of thinking is if you took a Goodwill and a Home Depot and they had a baby, it'd be a restore, right? And so,
all right.
This country has this massive supply line. It's based on consumers buying, seasonal purchases. And so when you go into a Lowe's and you see all the patio furniture go out and you see all the winterizing stuff come in and you're thinking, gosh, summer's not even over. And then you're getting ready for, the end of summer and you're seeing Halloween come in and, soon Christmas is right behind it. And you go, gosh, it's only September,
Yeah.
And so if you think of it like Ford thinks about how many Ford F-150s are we going to sell of this model. And then they have to figure out how many tires, how many truck beds, how many dashboards, and then they call it. And so sometimes they sell it all out. Sometimes they sell part of it, and towards the end, they just want to get rid of them. So that's where we land. We're in that get rid of them pocket. So there's a lot of brand new stuff that comes in restore. And the reason is because that company is towards the end of their line and they've got to clear the shelves because the new seasonal need is coming and it's a greater need for them. And so we're in this little honeypot where we get calls from groups that are nationwide networked, and they kind of manage bringing items in, and they need to figure out where to send them out. And we've got a number of partners doing that. There's a group called Ferguson or Good 360. Good 360 is really big on disaster response for materials, but they also get access to an awful lot of stuff. So they called us and said, oftentimes we'll get a call and say, if you just buy the gas for this truck, we can get stuff to you from Salt Lake or from, down Southern California. But you usually have 30 minutes to make the decision because there's a bunch of nonprofits like us out there. They need to move it, and it's going to happen. So we make a call, and fortunately we have a big floor space because there's times when we've just been overwhelmed. And they'll send you a manifest, and it'll tell you it has this, this, and this, and this, and here's a value. And we look at it and think, okay, well, I think we can sell that stuff. And if we look at the vast and mysterious internet, it'll tell you a price of anything.
Yeah.
So we just take that price and make it half price. And if it doesn't move, it is going to get knocked down some more. Right now, we have a piece that you put into the back of a pickup truck and you salt snowy road systems, right? So if you're shopping for a tool like that, you probably aren't thinking a Habitat Restore is going to have one. And so we've had this thing for going on a year. So we called CDF in Magalia and said, we know you guys go into the Outback. Do you guys need something like this? And they said, well, let's call you back. And they called back in 3 minutes. We want that thing. Come and get it. Just take it. It's for the good of the community.
Yeah.
Julius Murphy opens up 8 transitional housing sections, and we say, Julius, call on us. We've got refrigerators, stoves. We can get you set up with your appliances and get those kitchens ready to go. No cost to Salvation Army. So the reason we're able to do that is because we're also selling some of those, and that offsets what we've spent to make the whole thing happen. It generally covers all of our staffing. And so then when we get donated money, all that money goes to benefiting the projects that Habitat works on and helping people get into housing and get their fresh start, or even the new apartments where people are getting their lives restored through those living indoor experiences and being safe now. And it makes a big difference. And it's changing. That thing is like an accordion, it's full, it's empty, it's full.
I've been in there. We've gone in for a private school, and at one time, and I can't remember the gentleman that worked there at the time. I want to say his name was Robert. Mm-hmm. And so there was a little desk, and it was perfect for a kid. It was a kid's desk. And I said, have you got any more of these? And he went in the back, and we bought like 30 of those desks. And as a matter of fact, right here in our production studio, we have a desk that automatically goes up and down. We got that from Restore some time back. And so, you can go in there. What I was going to ask, though, is like, does the Restore, like, pay the light bill, right? Does the money that come in help satisfy the needs of what you have to do week to week, right? Month to month. Does it help pay those bills?
It covers those bills.
Oh, so that's what you meant by each habitats live, die, sink, swim on their own.
Yeah.
So having the Restore helps keep that afloat.
It
right?
does. It does. And there's been consolidations. There's been habitats that, when Houston had their last major hurricane, 6 different habitat organizations consolidated. And Yolo County and West Sacramento went under, and they consolidated into Sacramento Habitat, so now it's called Greater Sacramento. So that has affected, that is one of those things. And so we are remarkably blessed to have a CEO in Joseph Hale. And I love mentioning that, on paper, he is the most unqualified employee we have. He's got a degree in medieval history and art. But he has a soul for the mission of Habitat for Humanity. When I was first hired, about the first year or so, we were running into cash problems. We didn't take that out on the employees, but Joseph and I both took pay cuts, and we're happy to do our part to lean into this and make it work. But would not expect that of a young family or people that are not making much more than minimum wage. Well, during that time, we had a Habitat house that was completed, and it had an owner, but she wasn't living in it. And then we realized through Facebook that her daughter was enrolled in Chico High School, and she was residing in Chico. So we stopped taking mortgage payments and said, you got to come in here. And found out that, well, she's got a guy he's got a couple of McMansions, but he just hasn't popped the question. And so, my house, that's my backup. And we said, well, we're not a backup business.
Wow.
We're a
Like
help
backup.
people get ahead in life business. You're completely living there. You're completely raising your daughter there. There's still many people that have needs.
Yeah.
And so we cashed her out. We bought the house back. And I said, Joseph, look, we did the Habitat thing. We built the house. We had volunteers. The person came in. She got ahead in life. She went beyond. Okay, so we did it. We punched the card. Why don't we sell this at market value on the street and just put it into our cash flow?
So
We can, take the burden off. He wouldn't have it. He just put another Habitat family in there and just stayed on the grindstone. And I thought, I didn't mean for that to be a test,
but
I was so impressed. I was so thankful that the core tenets of this organization that Yuba Center has in this habitat is deeply committed to service and delivering. So it's a natural for me. I feel like I'm walking on the highest ground I've ever walked on. It's just incredible. And seeing people that kind of come back to life. They had lost everything. And I'll just share real quick.
Yeah.
In our apartments, there's a guy named Ricky. He's kind of a Clint Eastwood type, he's wiry, he's tall, he's skinny, and he's really stoic, and I'm a real believer in take us as we are. It's point in time and no appointments. You want to see what we do, come exactly in the middle of what we do. I want us to be good from the start to finish, ready for inspection. So I asked Ricky and a couple other folks that are living in the Highway 99 Harmony Village to come talk to the city council, and we wanted to pursue the Bonanza Inn project, convert that at that time. And God, he gets up there and he articulates off the greatest message. And I'm looking at him, does anybody else, did we know him? Did we know he had all this, And we're taking them all out to dinner that night. And I said, Ricky, you're ex-military. You got a pension for the military. You're smart as can be. I mean, you have to have a family. I said, well, I do, John. He says, I have 2 kids in Tennessee. They've got beautiful children. They're very successful. And I go, so why aren't you living there? And he said, well, I'm never going to have my name be on a piece of paper when they're doing their bills in the kitchen. I am not their burden. And I said, oh my gosh.
That's a vet.
This is a guy that had been missing his right hand, loved fishing. And I said, well, how do you put the hook together with that? And he goes, come on, John. He goes, last week I caught a fish this big, because he doesn't have his right hand. So
Yeah.
And he sent me a note like 3 weeks ago saying, hey, just letting you know, John, appreciate what you guys are doing down here. I appreciate that before I came to this Harmony Village, my rent was $1,200 a month. My utilities and my regular garbage, all that stuff went past what the veteran services were paying me. So food or medicine was not an option for me. Since I moved into your thing, all my utilities, all my rent, all my Wi-Fi, it's all at $400 a month. I have been sitting on that, and I am going to Tennessee on my terms.
Come on.
Total good story, total success, and a family is restored, and we get to hear those kinds of stories.
I don't think we hear them enough.
I
People
know.
see the burden. They don't always hear about the successes.
Well, if you'd have looked at Ricky and his pickup, and he didn't talk a bunch, you might actually let yourself judge that he's just a homeless guy.
Yeah.
And he had a whole lot more going on. And he's a fantastic gentleman. And so, yeah, I'm going to miss him, but I'm so pleased that we were part of him bouncing back. And that new mission is like Habitat 2.0. So we know that we're a mortgage lending company. We know we can do mortgages for people that wouldn't qualify for conventional loans. That test is proven, and we're growing. in that area. But in this piece of it, there is a segment of population, and it really isn't interested in a 30-year mortgage. They're in their 70s. They're in their 80s. But a spouse died, and that limited income just got cut in half.
So they have to, yeah.
They need help. I mean, they're used to paying $600 a month for rent, and if you can show me any place, anywhere that rents for $600 a month,
Yeah,
so seniors are really affected. So it's a new day for us, and it's to me exciting because our habitat, this size community that we live in with our size Habitat International says you guys need to place at least 8 people, 2 families a year. And in the past year and a half, we've placed over 200. And what we have on the wall for projects in front of us, if we get those accomplished, we'll be housing well over 1,000 families. And I'm just really thankful and proud to be a part of that.
John, we're running out of time.
Oh, no, we're not. We can go and go and go.
Just flip it over. We'll do another hour. We will. We'll get back together and do that. I just want to express to you how much I appreciate you. I've had serious conversations with you. We've had a lot of joking conversations.
Yeah.
But I really wanted to get an opportunity to put you in the tank so that people could see kind of you came from this, and it's why you do what you do.
Oh, yeah.
And I really, and besides that, I want, my fellow Italians to be viewed in a much better light. We're not always taking money. We give money, right?
We do. We're benevolent like that. The only thing that concerns me is that every night, your wife has to do the one thing that is the most difficult thing for any Italian to face. She's got to sleep with the fishes.
That's a true story right there. John Nicolletti, this is Fish, and I want to appreciate you taking the time to watch this podcast, and we'll be doing these on a regular basis in the tank with Fish. It is kind of funny to ask a fellow Italian to come, where the fishes are, right? There was no cement involved, and nobody was actually hurt in this interview.
This time.
Yeah, this time. Thanks again for watching.